Hi friends, welcome back. We actually wanted to create a React Node tutorials. As a prerequisite to learn React Node, we need to learn JavaScript ES6. So we thought of starting it from this playlist, and this playlist will focus on all the features, basic features that are required to learn React Node. So at the end of this tutorial, you'll be able to understand all the concepts of JavaScript ES6 and you'll be ready to learn React and Node. Different types of variable declaration available with JavaScript ES6. There are three types of declaration available: where, let, and const. Before getting deeper into these three type of variable declaration in JavaScript, we need to understand three terms. One is block scope, then function scope, and hoisting. So what do you mean by a block scope? What do you mean by a scope? Scope is nothing but areas where the variable is available for accessing. That is scope. For example, we have declared a variable here and initialized to value 20, and I am accessing that variable here, which means this variable is accessible here and this is the scope of this variable. So what is meant by block scope and what is function scope? If the variable is available between this block alone, then it is block scope. Even though this variable is initialized inside this if statement, if block, but still if this variable x is available inside this entire function, then it is function scope. Which means if a variable belongs to a block and will be available inside that block alone, then it is block scoped. And on the other hand, if the variable is available inside the function, if the variable is available anywhere inside the function where it is declared, irrespective of the block, then it is function scope. And the third term is hashing. There is a behavior in JavaScript called as hashing. During the process of compilation and before execution, all the variables initialized in the source code by default will be declared on the top of the code by the JavaScript compiler, by the JavaScript compiler. But this will not be visible to the user. This remains as a responsibility of the JavaScript compiler to create the variable initially, and the initialization will remain on the place where we have typed. So this process is called as hashing. So that is why in JavaScript, even though we declare a variable here, we will be able to access this variable here as well. I'll show you. But the value will be undefined because it will be declared but not initialized. We have only one console statement. If I run this code, we'll get undefined value. Undefined. So this process is called as hashing. See, I have removed the manual declaration as well. This where x equal to 20 is initialized in the line 6, but still if I am trying to access this before even initializing, I am able to access it, but the value is undefined. This process is called as hashing. Now let us go into the declaration part. So there are three types of declaration as I told before: where, let, and const. So first let us take the where method of initializing a variable. So if we initialize a variable like this where x equal to 20, inside this if statement, if block, you will be able to access this variable here. So declaring a variable using where is a function scoped variable. The VAR method of declaring a variable will be function scoped, which means I can declare this variable anywhere inside this function, anywhere inside, deeper inside the function in another block, but still this variable will be available outside the inner block. When we declare a variable using var x equal to 20, it will be function scoped variable, which means I will declare this variable inside this if block, but still this variable will be available for accessing outside this if block. That is function scoped due to the reason hashing in JavaScript. So I will be able to access this variable here, but I'll get undefined first time, then I'll get value 20. You can see first undefined, I'm able to access it but no error, but the value is initialized to undefined, then 20. So this is VAR type of declaring a variable. Now we will use let. Let is not function scoped variable. Let will be block scoped, which means the variable that are declared using let will be accessible only inside the block where it is declared. But here, even here the hashing is available, but this let x equal to 20, this x will not be available outside this if block. When we try running this code, we will get reference error, which means x, there is no reference of x available, so it will throw an error. See, reference error. So I can remove it here and I can add it here. So x will be available inside this if block alone and not to the function block. So that is why this is block scoped variable. And coming to the third part of declaring variable, const x equal to 20. So this is again block scoped variable like let. So this const x will be available only inside this if block and not outside the function. I mean not outside the if block and not to the function. And another feature of const is you will not be able to change the value of the variable after initializing. X equal to 30. When we do this, we will get an error. See, assignment to a constant variable, which means it is a constant variable and you cannot assign a value because it is constant. String letters in JavaScript ES6. So a string can be a collection of characters enclosed within single quote or double quote is the traditional way of representing a string. So when I run this code, it will just print a string value. So this is traditional way of representing a string. Then what is string literals? It is modern way of representing a string which is supported by JavaScript ES6. So string literals is nothing but a string enclosed within backticks. This is called as backticks. So instead of this double quotes, I can use this backticks, and which makes the string as string literals. So there is difference between both, difference between the behavior of both. Let me explain. So both gives you same kind of output, but what is the difference? So there are three different features that are supported by string literals. They are multi-line string, string interpolation, and tagged templates. So we will go one by one. So how can I use multi-line strings? For example, in the traditional way, if I use double quotes, I'll get an error. If I use double quotes and use multi-line string, press enter after a word and type the string continuously, it will throw an error. But in case of this string literals, that is backticks used, I can enter any number of lines of strings. And if I if I print the value, it will just get printed. See? So this is the first special feature of string literals. So you don't need to use escape sequences, escape characters in order to use multi-line strings. This is first feature of string literals. So second feature, string interpolation. String interpolation is nothing but adding expressions inside a string. For example, so I have a welcome string here. I want this variable value to be added here. So in the traditional method, how we will add it? For example, hi, then we will use concatenation operator, then we will use the variable name, again then concatenation operator, and again. So this is the traditional way of concatenation, or traditional way of using expressions or variables inside a string, which is directly concatenating a string. This method is called as ugly concatenation, which is not an efficient way to use. When it comes to this string literals, we can straight away directly use an expression or a variable inside a string when it is used with backticks, dollar operator, and then braces. Inside that, you can specify the variable name. When you print the string, you will get the variable embedded inside this string and printed. You can see the output. So the variable value has been embedded inside this string. This is string interpolation. Coming back to the last and important part of the string literals. Tagged templates. Tagged templates is a method function to process a string literal. Let me explain. So I'm just creating a function. So tagged template function will have a specific structure. So function name can be anything and keyword should be function. It will have two parameters, strings and rest operator values. So this is fixed syntax of function that processes string literals. So what is this strings and what is this values? Let me explain. So before explaining this, let me explain what is static part of a string and what is dynamic part of a string. So I have declared three variables and I am going to add these three variables as an expression to a string. Welcome and welcome right. So I'm just adding this string just for explanation. So in this string, what is the static part of this string? If you take this string, after removing all the expressions, we are left with the static part of the string. And what is the dynamic part of the string? Person1, person2 and person3. So what this tagged template function will do is it will receive the static part of the function separately and the dynamic part of the function separately, both as array. So it will receive this part comma this part comma this part as an array, for an example, and this as an array. This will be received in the name of strings and this will be received in the name of values. So this is the fixed syntax of a function that is going to process a string literal. Now we will pass this string directly to this function and let's see what output we are getting. So how to call a function that processes string literal? So directly function name followed by the string literal. That's it. If you run this code, I am just printing the strings value separately and values separately. So string value will be an array and again values will be an array. You could see this static part of the string separately printed and the dynamic part of the string, which is represented by the expressions, separately printed. So this is how we can process a string literals using tagged templates. But what is the special or specific use case with this tagged template? I can tell you. For example, if you want to make the values alone in a bold or strong font type or in HTML, or even for example, let's take even simpler. I just wanted to make these dynamic values or make these values alone to uppercase. I can specifically do that. Let's say for let I equal to 0, I less than dot length so we are going to iterate each values of the array. So or even if I want to just add these strings, So I will just strings of I plus for example a single space and then plus. I can make these values of I to uppercase. So I'm just concatenating each iteration of the string with static value space the dynamic value, and that dynamic value specifically changed to uppercase. So let's see what output we are getting after the loop iteration is completed. You could see all the values of the person 1, 2 and 3 was lowercase initially, and after this tagged template processing, all the names is converted into uppercase. So these are the in-depth explanation of tagged templates and all the other string literal features. Enhanced object literals. There are few important features that are introduced in JavaScript ES6 that makes actually the object creation simpler and the code will be more concise and readable. So let us see one by one the features. So let me initialize a JavaScript object first. So this is how a JavaScript variable will be declared. See, you are getting the JavaScript object as an output. Now, instead of adding value here, we can add a variable and we can create a variable and add that variable inside this value. Let place equal to and temperature equal to 25, for example. This can be string or this can be number, that doesn't matter. It is just for an example. So now I can replace this value by the variable name. Temperature. So key place and value is a variable. This variable denotes the value a, and key is temperature, and this temperature is the variable, and this value will be 25. Now coming to the first important feature of this enhanced object literals. There is something called shorthand property names. So property names is place and temperature, the first key. There is a condition if the variable name and the key name is same, or if you want the key name to be same as the variable name, then you don't need to explicitly specify the key name, which means place comma. In this case, the JavaScript will automatically take the key name as place and value as a, and the key name as temperature and value as 25. This is called as shorthand property names. Fine. So next example, next feature is shorthand function name or method names. We can specify or we can create a function inside a JavaScript object. For that, initially we need to have a keyword named function but in this JavaScript ES6 that function keyword is not required. Simply write a function console log. See, there is no function keyword specified in this function, and I can just call the function from here. Object name a dot so if I run this code, this function will be called and this output will be printed. See, so this is shorthand function names. Then third feature is computed property names, which means, for example, I am going to declare a JavaScript object So this is a JavaScript object. Here, till now we were just adding variable name for the value alone. Now we are going to add variable name for the key value. For example, let's take age. So I want this value to be populated here. So I can directly use square bracket this square bracket will find the variable and get its value and populate it here. So we can dynamically allocate a key value, and that key value might be changed at runtime. So even if I wanted to change this property value, I can make it as let and add a value, and I can change the value at runtime so that the key name is not static, it can be dynamic, depends upon the value of the variable. So computed property names. So we can have a property name as a computed value. See, we have just added the variable name and that value has been populated as a key in the output. And here comes the last feature of this enhanced object iterators, super keyword. It's slightly connected with the inheritance concept. For example, parent object, I am going to create a function in parent object hello from parent. Now I am going to create a child object and I am going to create the same function name console.log of now I am going to inherit the properties of parent to the child. Set prototype of the first parameter is going to be the object that wanted to get inherited, which is child, and the second parameter is going to be from the object from which we are going to copy the properties, which is parent. Now if I just call child.greet, I'll get this output now. See, hello from child. The main part of this feature is super keyword. I can use super keyword to call parent object function. Super dot greet of. If I add this line here, so it should be inside the function. If I add this line here, this function, the JavaScript will search for the parent object and find a greet function on the parent object and execute it, and then execute the console second child console line. Now if I run this code, first we are calling the parent object function. We will get this output first, and then we will get this hello from child. So hello from parent and hello from child. So these are all the 4 important features of enhanced object literals, and these 4 features makes object creation and object handling easier for us in JavaScript ES6. Next topic, arrow function. So before understanding what is arrow function, we must need to know 2 other topics. Those are what is function and what is callback function. So only then we will be able to understand what is arrow function. So first, what is going to be a function? Now let's take, I'm going to write an implementation for calculating average. Right, now when I run this code, I will get the average. So I have written a very simpler implementation of calculating average of 2 numbers. So if I need to calculate average of another 2 number, 30 and b equal to 40, again I will have to write same code again. I just don't need to initialize it, that's it. So you can see that same implementation has been written twice. Instead of this, what can be done is, we can take this implementation, write it separately inside a block, give it a name, and name that as a function, and call that function whenever it is needed. Calculate average of, just send the values to be calculated as an argument or parameter. Simple. Remove this implementation. Now let's try running this code. You get the same output. So I think you can see the differences between the previous implementation and current implementation. For the previous implementation, how many times the implementation is needed, you have to manually write that many times. But now we are having a common place where that implementation is done, and we have given it a name and parameters. So whenever it is needed, how many number of times it is needed, we can call that function, and that implementation will do the calculation for us. This is called as function. Now coming to callback function. So what is a callback function? A function that can be sent as argument or parameter to another function, that is called callback function. So what is the use case? What is the scenario? Let's see. I'm going to write a function to calculate sum of two numbers. So what this function will do is, it will get two values, add the two values and return the value. Now what I can do is, I can do some changes in this function to I will explain this keyword after entering value inside this. So I am just adding a variable here, removing this total or just commenting. Now see, I am calling this calculate average function. While calling, I am just sending this function name as a parameter. So in order to avoid confusion, I am just removing this second part. See, I am calling calculate average function and I am sending this function as a parameter to this function. While executing, this function will receive add function in the name of calculate sum. So in this 11th line, what it is doing, it will actually call this add function with values a comma b. So a is 10 and b is 20, which is received here, and that a comma b will be calculated, which means a plus b will be calculated and returned to variable total, and on the next line average will be calculated, and finally it will be printed. Now let us try running this code. You see, you get the same output 15. So this is a normal function, calculate average, and this calculate sum, which is this add, is going to be a callback function, which means I am not calling this function now. On the 19th line, I am not calling this function here. I am just sending this function. This function will be called only when it is needed, which means line number 11. It will be called back when it is needed. So that is why this is called as callback function. A function can be sent as an argument to another function and it can be called back whenever it is needed, and that is why this is callback function. So now let us jump into the main topic, arrow function. So arrow function is a new feature that is introduced in JavaScript ES6. It is very simpler way to write a JavaScript function with shorter syntax. Let's see, I am going to write this same add function as an arrow function with a different name. For example, const, let's say total equal to, it receives again two parameter x comma y. We give arrow equal to an arrow here and a plus b. Now I am saying that this function and this function has an equivalent implementation. Both calculates the sum of two variables and returns it. But the difference is, this is normal function and this is arrow function. So what is the difference? The same implementation can be written in a single line without curly braces and without return statement. So the main advantage of this arrow function is to make the code simple, readable. Even I can write the same arrow function with multiple lines. Add equal to a comma b and arrow open brace close brace. Now I can do all the implementation inside this curly braces. Total equal to a plus b return total. I can just remove this function. I can just send this add to this function, and when we run this code, we will get the same output. See the same output. So instead of having that traditional function, we can have this arrow function since it is very simple and readable with a shorter syntax. So what is the advantage of this arrow function? That was specifically single line arrow function. If the expression or the implementation is on single line, you don't need to add braces, you don't need to add an entire function. Instead of this, directly what I can do is I can straight away instead of calling a function here, I can write the function directly here. A comma b is the argument that I am going to take. Arrow a plus b, that's it. So instead of adding that function separately and sending that argument, I can directly add the single line arrow function here itself as an argument, and that will do the same implementation for us here. See, so I can show the difference. See, instead of adding this function here, I am just removing or commenting this function. I can write that same function as an arrow function in a single line. So this makes the code very simple and readable. And even if I want to make this as multi-line function, I can do that also. Very simple. That's it. So if we run this code, we will get the same output. So these are the ways how we can add an arrow function, how we can write an arrow function, or how we can send an arrow function as a parameter, both single line arrow function and multi-line arrow function as a parameter to another function. So specifically, arrow function is designed to have simpler syntax and also to send a function as a callback. It fits best when you send this function as a callback function. So now let's go a little bit deeper into this arrow function concept. What are all the special features when you are able to send a normal function as a callback function, and when you are able to send arrow function as a callback function, and when you can do all the things that function does with an arrow function, then what makes arrow function special or differ from the normal function? Let's say first thing, arrow function is created to make code simple and readable with shorter syntax. And second thing, when you have the expression or implementation in a single line, you don't need to have curly braces or return statement, and it will take it automatically. So these are two important features of arrow function. There are three other features that arrow function does not possess when compared to a normal function. Let's see. Let's write a JavaScript object for this. Let's say I'm having a key as name and a value hello. And now I'm going to write a function set timeout of. Inside that set timeout, I will execute this function after 1 second. I am going to write an arrow function here. Console log of this dot name. After executing this, I will explain. After 1 second, you got the value hello, which is the value of the variable key value name. So this is an important feature, both advantage as well as disadvantage. This arrow function, inside this arrow function, when we call this keyword, this will automatically point to this parent object, which means this arrow function does not have specific this keyword. By default, this keyword will automatically point to its parent object. So that is why when we call this dot name, instead of displaying some other value, it straight away goes back to parent object, which is obj.js, and searches for a variable or key value named name and gets that value and prints it. So this is one feature that arrow function does not have, which means arrow function does not have its own this keyword. It will always point to its parent object or parent code that is surrounding it. But when you do this using a normal function, that normal function will have or will point this keyword to its own implementation and not the parent object. Even that too we can demonstrate here, because we have the arrow function here. We have demonstrated this of the arrow function here, and we have the normal function. Let's say this dot first name equal to hi. Now I'm just going to log this dot first name. So we have declared a variable named first name which belongs to this function using this keyword, and we are trying to access that same variable using this keyword. Now let's see, this dot name here in the 7th line will point to this variable, whereas because this is arrow function, this keyword will automatically points to this parent object, whereas the function normal function, this keyword will point to the same function. See, so this dot first name on the 5th line prints hi, which is referring to this first name, and that's why we got this. And this dot name in the 7th line is pointing to name on the 2nd line. So that is the difference between normal function and arrow function, and this is both advantage and as well as disadvantage for arrow function, because it doesn't have this own this keyword. And next feature, no own arguments. For example, function add of or function say hi of console.log of. So when you don't send any argument, but we are just printing a keyword called arguments for a normal function, but we are sending values here in case of normal function. You see, this argument keyword will receive whatever argument we are sending, and that will print it as an JSON object. But this is for a normal function. I'm creating an arrow function without sending any parameter and trying to print arguments. You can see the difference between both the function. I missed to call it. Say hello of, I'm just sending 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll see the difference between both. See, First, we have got this object for calling the normal function, and then you are getting error or some other data. So this feature, which means an arrow function does not have its own arguments in case of empty parameters or no argument function. But a normal function will have an argument. You don't need to specify arguments keyword here, but you can access the arguments using arguments keyword. But this is not possible directly, but indirectly, if you want to pass number of arguments, you can use rest operator. So explanation of rest operator can be covered in a separate video, but this is an indirect way of doing the same implementation. See, you can have it, but not without an argument. So this is another feature that our arrow function lacks. Now coming to last feature. Let's say, let's take this same example. Now I am going to use this normal function as a constructor and see what response we are getting. Let I equal to new say hi of 2,3. That's it. See, I can use my function as a constructor, but what will be response in case of arrow function? Let's see. Let h equal to new say hello of same 2,3. I'm just going to remove or comment this normal function calling. See, this is not a constructor, which means arrow function cannot be used as a constructor. So, to summarize all the things that we have discussed now, a normal function and an arrow function differs in the way of writing a code. An arrow function is created to make code very simple and readable and with shorter syntax. Specifically, when we have the implementation in a single line, you don't need to have a braces or you don't need to have a return statement. But the other major differences between a normal function and a arrow function is normal function can have this, but arrow function cannot have own this. It will point to its parent object. So this keyword is not there in arrow. This keyword will automatically point to its parent object. And second, normal function has its own argument in case of no argument function, but in arrow function it's not there. And the last thing, it can be used as constructor and cannot be used as constructor. So almost it is very clear that an arrow function is not a better implementation than a normal function in many scenarios, but it is mainly created to have a very short syntax and make code readable and easy to write. But in case of larger implementation, it is better to go for a normal function than an arrow function. So arrow function specifically for a specifically when we have a very small implementation, that too as a callback implementation, we can use an arrow function. Next topic, it is default parameters. So we are going to create a function named say hello, and it takes one parameter, and prints the value hello, prints the statement hello along with the given parameter value. Now I am going to call this function say hello with the parameter alias as person name. So now when I run this code, we will get the output hello alias. This is normal function definition and calling the function. Now what if I am not giving any parameter value here? You are getting undefined value. So this is one scenario. To handle one such scenarios, there is a feature called default parameters in JavaScript ES6 where you can specify a variable, a value which will be automatically used or taken when the parameter value is not given. See, I'm not sending any parameter, but still I'm getting the output hello alias, which means the person name has a default value alias, and that default value has been considered and printed to the output. Now let's try with another function with multiple parameters and see how it behaves. Let's say a comma b comma c equal to 1, b equal to 2, and c equal to 3. A equal to, I'm just printing the value of the variable a, and like this we can print b and c as well. Now I'm just calling this function with value 5, 6, 7, which means for a it should be 5, for b it should be 6, and c it should be 7. 5, 6, and 7. If I am not giving the last parameter, then for the first two parameter this 5 and 6 will be taken, and for the last parameter, since I am not giving any value, default value of 3 will be taken. So output will be 5, 6, and 3. Now if I am not giving the second parameter as well, only first value for 5 will be taken, and second and third b and c will be supplied with the default values. 5, 2, and 3. 5 here, 2 and 3 here. And if I am not giving any value, any parameter, then all the default values will be taken. 1, 2, and 3. But you cannot add parameters for a, c, and miss b alone. For example, I am giving two parameters. One is for a, for example, and one is for c. This is not possible because the value will be taken in order. First parameter is going to be a, second is going to be b, and third is going to be c. Okay, now we can also have expressions as default values. For example, if there is no c value provided with the parameters, then I want the sum of a value and b value to be used as default value. Then I can use the expression here. This is also possible. Now By default 3, 5 and 6 I have given. So 3, 5, 6 and 6 will be printed. This is clear. Now I am not going to give the third value, so the first sum of first two value 3 plus 5 equal to 8 should be used for C. Let's see whether that is expression is used. See, 3, 5 and 8. Now I am not going to give the second value also. So in this scenario, for A 3 will be taken, for B 2 will be taken, for C is also not provided. So A value 3 and B value 2, 3 plus 2 5 will be taken for C. See, 3, 2 and 5. And finally I will remove the one and only parameter also. 1, 2 and 1 plus 2 equal to 3. So this kind of having expressions as default parameters is also possible. We can also have default values when the parameter is going to be a JSON or JavaScript object. Now, so this function has been rewritten in order to receive JSON object as an parameter. So I am just creating a complete JSON object with both the values, name, comma, age, 20. So when we run this code, we should get the output as hello Bob and your age is 20. We have got the output. Now I am just going to remove this age alone. So the function should take the value for name as Bob, and since age is not given, by default value 50 has to be taken. Hello Bob and your age is 50. So Bob is taken from the parameter here and 50 is taken from the default parameter. Let's see if I am giving an empty object. So for empty object, both name and age is taken from the default values. Alice and age is 50. Even I can remove this also. We'll get the same output. So these are all the variety usage on default parameters. Next topic, rest operator and spread operator. So both rest operator and spread operator used to handle or manage arrays and objects efficiently. So this is the syntax of rest operator, and spread operator also will share the same syntax. So both representing both rest operator and spread operator is 3 dots and a variable name, but they differ from the way they are behaving inside the code. So let us take rest operator first. We'll discuss in detail, then we go for spread operator. Now I have created a function with rest operator, which means this rest operator is used to receive any number of arguments and convert it into an array and print it here. I can send two values as arguments. I can receive that argument as an array, or I can send any number of arguments. I can receive that as an array. So when a scenario we do not know how many number of parameters or arguments we will be passing, in that case we can use rest operator for a function to receive any number of arguments from the calling function. Okay, so next question. When we are using rest operator for a parameter in a function, can we use any other parameters additionally? The answer is yes. We can also use rest operator along with another parameters. So when I add one parameter here and then rest operator, in the sense the value which it is receiving, the first value will be pointed to this variable, first variable, and rest all of the values will be taken care by this rest operator. I am just printing the first variable separately and the other values separately. You can see. So this first value is directly taken by this variable, and that is why it is not an array here, and all the other values is received by this rest operator and then converted into array, and that is why we are having this as an array. Okay, this is one scenario. Then rest operator can be used to receive even the properties of an object. Let's say I have an object with three values, name, age and job, and I need to get these two details. For example, this age and job are the two details alone which I need. I can use rest operator to separate this name with these two values. How can I do this? Let name comma rest operator details. So what is the implementation of this line number 4? It will take this entire object, get the name key value pair separately and store it inside this variable name, and all the other values inside this details variable, because it is represented as rest operator. So when I print these details, I will get these two values. Age and job I am getting separately. So rest operator can be used to handle objects also. Now let us focus spread operator. So mainly spread operator is used to expand an array or object into individual elements. That is its main feature. Let a equal to 2, 5, just an array. Now I need to expand this array into individual values. So what I will do is I am just going to add this array to another array. Let b equal to another array. I need all the values of this array. So I am expanding this array using spread operator. This is not rest operator, no, this is spread operator. A comma additionally I need two more values 7 comma 8. I am printing B. See, so values of this array A has been expanded here, and additionally I have added 7 and 8, and that is also added to this array and printed. So this is first main feature of spread operator. We can individually expand the array or expand the object. Now let us see how a spread operator can be used while calling a function. We will just compare both rest and spread. So rest operator will be used inside a function as an argument when we do not know how many number of parameters or arguments we will be passing. Indefinite number of arguments. Now coming to spread. So this is a function. We know how many values we have to send, but I do not want to send it as an individual values, or I have the values as an array. For example, let I have this as an array 34 8. Now in this scenario I need to send all these four values as ABCD to spread operator, this spread OP function. What I can do is I can straight away pass this numbers using spread operator, which means these four values as an array we are sending as spread operator. It will automatically expand this array as an individual value and send it to this function. This is the difference between rest and spread. So this is using rest operator and this is using spread operator. Next, we can even combine arrays using spread operator. Let combined array equal to spread operator of A comma spread operator of B. See, both arrays are expanded and combined into single array. So this spread operator A gets this 1 and 2 here, and the spread operator B gets 3 and 4 here, and combining it into separate array and printing. So we can use spread operator for this scenario also. So we can straight away use this for copying an array also. Simple. Rest operator A, this will copy the value of A to copy, and here we need to print the variable copy. So the value the value of array A is copied to the variable copy and printed. So likewise, this spread operator can be used to expand even objects. Let person equal to name I have an object. Now if I want to expand this object, let's see what it displays. Let new object equal to, I am just expanding this person object using spread operator and expanding this job object using spread operator. Now new obj, you can see initially it was two objects. First object has two values and second object has one value, and we have expanded this first object here using spread and the second object using spread here, and that has been created into new object, and we have the merged object here. So this is how we can use spread operator for expanding even values of objects also. So there is an important point to be noted while using spread operator copy, which is called as shallow copy. I have an array, inside that I have an object. Now I am going to copy that into another array. Okay, so this original is expanded here and added into array. Now what I am going to do is copy of 0 dot name equal to bbb. I have just changed the value of copy variable. Now I am trying to console log of original. See, I have just copied this original to a variable named copy, and I have updated the name key value of copy alone, but I am printing original. I am getting the updated value, which means in shallow copy it copies the reference and not the value. So even if I use this copy, okay, I will get the reference of this array. So if I update the copy variable, the original value will be updated. Original value will get affected. And another small use case of combining rest operator and spread operator. Okay, so I need this part of array alone to be taken and added with one more value and print a separate array. In this scenario, we can use rest operator and spread operator combinedly to achieve this result. Let in a new array first comma all values, all other values, equal to numbers. Then again, so now here with the help of this operator, I have separated this one from all the other values. Okay, now new values equal to all other value comma 7 comma 8. I have added two more values. Now let's try printing it. New values. See, so we got the output as 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8. So this is the scenario where we can use both rest operator and spread operator combined to achieve or to remove a specific value in an array and to add another value, few more values to an array. So this is a specific use case. And the next part is even rest operator can be used in destructuring arrays and destructuring objects, which can be discussed in detail while we cover this destructuring part. Next topic, destructuring arrays and objects. Let's say we have this array with value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I need to take this value 1, 2 and 3 and assign it to variables a, b and c, how we usually do is let a equal to numbers of 0. So this is how we usually assign values of array to individual variables. This takes 3 lines, and if I want to assign all the 6 values, then it will take 6 lines. This is the traditional way, which is without destructuring. But JavaScript provides a special way to assign all the values or few values of an array to individual variables in a single line. If you have square bracket on the left hand side, then JavaScript understands that we are destructuring this array. I can add the variable name in this order. Very simple. So this is the line to unpack the values from array to individual variables in a single line. This is called array destructuring. So even if I want one more variable, I can do. So I have destructured or unpacked all the values of array to individual variables in a single line. So this is the example of destructuring arrays. Destructuring is nothing but unpacking the values of array or object to individual values or individual variables in a single line. So this is the special feature provided by JavaScript ES6. See, that's it. So when you have your square bracket on the right hand side of the equal to, then it means you are declaring an array. But when you have the square bracket on the left hand side, uh, to the equal symbol, then it means JavaScript understands that you are unpacking the arrays, or you are expanding the arrays into individual values and assigning to individual variables. Right now you will see destructuring objects. Right, so I have an object. Now I want this age and job in separate variable and name in separate variable. Let like this, same like arrays, when you have your curly braces on the right hand side to equal to, which means you are declaring or creating object. But when you have the curly braces on the left hand side to equal to, then it means you are trying to unpack the object, or trying to extract individual values of the object and save into individual variables. Name is comma job, simple. That's it. So this is the ability of JavaScript language to extract, expand values from object or arrays into individual variables in a single line. So this makes the code easily readable. Because in case if you are not using destructuring, if I want to get the value of name into separate variable, how we will do is person.name. So for each value we will write one line, but receiving all the values in a single line and assigning directly to variables inside this square curly braces, this is destructuring objects. So if I don't want the age variable, we cannot do this kind of skipping a value in between while destructuring object. But in case of arrays, this is possible. Let a comma b comma, I am just having empty comma and e comma f. So I am just ignoring one value in between, that is 3 in between. See, so skipping or ignoring a value in between while destructuring object is not possible. It will throw an error. But ignoring a value in between while destructuring arrays is possible. Even if I don't need e, I can remove it. So I can specify the same order and ignore the variables, ignore the values which are not needed, and just add variable name for the places which is needed, and I can access that values. This is destructuring arrays and objects. This makes us work easier to extract or to access value of array and object uh, with a minimal line of code. Next topic, symbols. Symbol is an unique, primitive, immutable data type that has been introduced in JavaScript ES6. Let us see how to declare a symbol. For example, symbol of some value. This symbol can be used as key for a property of an object. So, what is an object? For example, let my object equal to name. So, this is key and this is value. So, what do you mean by key for a property of an object? Which means in order to add the property name directly, we can use a key like square bracket hidden colon some value. Here we have used a key instead of value and that value is specified here. So when we console log my object of hidden, if we run this code, you will get that value that is specified in the object. So this symbol can be mainly used as a key for a property of an object. Okay, that is fine. What made the special need or requirement for JavaScript ES6 to introduce this kind of data type or variable? I'll tell you. For example, let a equal to some string value. Again, let b equal to some string value. Okay. Now console log of a equal to b. So I am checking whether both a and b are equal. So we will just comment this line. So it says that both a and b are equal. This is fine. Now hidden 2 equal to symbol of hidden. So I am creating another symbol with same value. Now in another console statement, hidden equal to hidden 2. Let us see what are we getting. So we need two outputs. One is comparing string and other one is comparing symbols. See, so first we are getting true and next we are getting false, which means two variables that has same string value will be equal, but two symbols with even with same symbol value will not be equal, will be different. So this is the unique property of symbol. So where it is used, what is the main use case of these symbols? Let me explain. Console log of my object dot keys. So if we just print all the keys of an object, my object, we will just remove these two. Okay. So I am just printing the keys of this object. So we are getting only the key value name and this symbol is not displayed. So even when we are iterating the list of keys for updating some value or something, even by mistake itself, we will not update this symbol value. So also, for example, in case if I have a key named hidden one, okay, but this hidden symbol is very special, and for example it need not to be updated or need not to be touched. So while changing or updating the value of hidden one, for example, my object dot hidden one equal to, for example, I am giving some value. If in case this is not a symbol, I am just typing is hidden. While updating or while writing this hidden one, while updating this hidden one value, by mistake if I missed to type this one, instead of updating this value, I am updating this value. This is a mistake. So in this special scenarios, for example, if I need to have a specific value that should not be edited by mistake, I can use symbols instead of a normal property, normal key. Now even if I type hidden, you see property hidden may not exist on this type because hidden is a symbol and you cannot access hidden using something like property or key. Okay, this is fine. Now if I print object.keys, I'm getting only the normal keys and not the symbol. So how can I get the symbols? Get on property symbols. I can get the symbol property with the help of this function. So this is related to feature nature of the symbols. Now what is the real time use case where it is specially used so that its presence makes the code valuable? Let me explain. For example, let us just delete all the code. I'm writing a function. Right. So consider this code is written by developer 1 on branch 1. Now consider same kind of code written by developer 2 on branch 2. Both are separate branches. For example, add, instead of add, he is writing some other function almost with the same implementation. Okay, so set status to inactive in case of second developer. Okay, so both the developers are writing almost the same function but with a different implementation on a different branch. So while it is on a different branch, it should not be a problem. Now consider so first developer calls this function, right? Let us just comment this part as of now. So first the developer add status to user and we are sending this user object as a parameter. Okay, likewise second developer does almost the same thing. Instead of add, he is using set. Okay, for now I am just commenting this. You can see the implementation, both are almost same function, getting same parameter. Setting the status, first is to active and second is to inactive, and he is setting status to user. I mean, he is calling this function and the second developer is calling this function. So what will happen when we merge these two branches? So when we merge these two branches, function should be fine, and this initialization is already done. Okay, set status to user. Now console.log of user. We will just run this code. So name alias and status is inactive, right? So where it is actually set to inactive, this function. But developer implementation of developer 2 has been complete. But what about implementation of developer 1? So developer 1 has already set the user status to active. Once he is calling add status to user, that user status is active. Then again, the second developer's code created a new function and it is calling this function and it is updating same object status to inactive. That is why after updating here it should be active, and after updating here it should be inactive. Finally we are getting inactive value. So developer 1 implementation has been overshadowed by developer 2 and overwritten the data. So by mistake, both the implementation have collided each other and has done some confusions. So in order to avoid this kind of confusion, we can, instead of having this direct value, we can create a symbol. Const status equal to symbol of status. Okay, status, for example 1. Instead of using the value, we are using the symbol key, and here same. Inside the second function, status 2 inactive. Now if you just print the user, see, both function implementation has been executed, still you are having both the value. So first symbol is active and second symbol is inactive. This is where specifically this symbol data type is used. One surprise is even we can have the same variable name, because it is inside the function. We can use the same variable name or same symbol name as well. Still our data will be preserved. Both active and inactive will be added. This is the use case of symbols data type. Next topic, iterator and iterables. Let's create an array, some 5 values. So what I have written is, I have created an array and I am trying to access each value one by one using for of loop. This loop is called for of loop, and printing the value individually. You can see the output. How am I able to access each elements with the help of for of loop? By default, this arrays, map, set, these things have an implementation called iterator inside it. So what is iterator? Iterator is a tool to access each element of the either array or map or set, whatever it may be. That tool is called iterator. Iterator will help us to iterate each values one by one. So that is iterator. So what is iterable? An object that has iterator inside it and have multiple values that can be iterated is called iterable. So in this case, nums is iterable, and iterator, the implementation is by default and we will not be able to see it now. So only because the iterator is already implemented in this array, we are able to access each element one by one. Now we will manually implement an iterator. So what is the main rules of iterator? An iterator is an object that should have next method. Next method. That method should return two values. One is value and other one is done. So for example, we are implementing an iterator for this array. Iterator equal to nums of symbol dot iterator. So now we are manually creating an iterator for this array. Iterator is actually specified to an object. So iterator dot next of. So by default this iterator belongs to nums array. So by default, if we call iterator dot next, it will access the next value of the nums array. So as I said, it will not only return the next value, it will also return another value called done. See, so value should be 3. So this is the first time we are accessing next, so we are getting the first value, and whether done equal to true, it's not true, it's false. So which means that there is another value, there is next value in the array, and this is not the last value of the array. We are just calling the iterator next to 2 times. You can see value 3 done false, value 6 and done false. We are doing it for the 5th time. So each time it should be false, the done value should be false, but when the value reaches the last element, then the done should be true, which means it is the end of the array. See, so until we have a value, the value is printed and done is false. Once we reached the last value, on the next time when we access iterator.next, the value should be undefined and done should be true, which means we are done with accessing all the values. So this is how we can manually implement iterator for a array for a iterable. So again, iterable is an object that has multiple values and it has an iterator implemented with which helps us to access values one by one. So this is just to learn how the default iterator will be. I mean, by default in an array or map or set, an iterator will be implemented. So now we will create a custom iterator. So I'm going to implement a method called next. So you know already that there is an, I mean, if there is an iterator, that iterator should have a method called next, and that method should return two values. One is value, other one is done. So value is going to be the current value, and done is a key that is help us showing whether we have reached the end of the array or end of the sequence. If this dot current is less than this dot last, so in that case we are going to return value this dot current plus plus comma done false, else return value undefined as per, I mean, you can see that if there is a value, then it should done should be false, and if that is the last value, and again if user is calling next, then the value should be undefined and done should be true. So we are creating next method according to this. Done is going to be true. Right. So we have implemented my iterator, I mean custom iterator. Now this iterator will return value 5 times, and 6th time it will return undefined and done is true. My iterator, it should be inside console log dot next. So directly I'm calling next. See, value 1. So what if I'm calling it second, third, fourth and fifth and sixth time? See, so as per our custom iterator, value 1, I mean for the first time this dot current will be less than this dot last. 1 2 3 4 5, and after this dot current will not be equal to this dot last, or will not be less than this dot last, because this dot current is going to be 6. So in that case, if case will not execute, it will go into else part. That is why it is returning undefined and done is true. So this is a simple implementation of a custom iterator uh, to understand how an iterator will work inside, how a default iterator is implemented inside arrays and set and maps, everything. Where it is specifically used in the sense we are creating a custom object and we need specific implementation over the iterator, we need a specific scenario to implement it inside an iterator, we can use this kind of iterator to implement our own requirement. So we are concluding this part by saying that an iterable is an object that has multiple values and should have an iterator implemented, and that iterator should have next method, next function implemented, and that should return value and done while iterating. So it should iterate all the values till the last value. The next topic is going to be special function called generators. So there is a relation between generator and the iterator that we will discuss it now. Generator is a special function in JavaScript ES6 that has the ability to pass and resume the code execution whenever it is called again. So what is the relation that connects generator and iterator? So generator function, when it is created, it will return iterator object, which means generator itself an iterator. So an iterator has been implemented as a special function and named it as generator. So what are the capabilities of generator? Let us discuss in terms of code. So this is a normal function that iterates from 0 to 9 when I am calling this function. We will just console log I value. See, so the value that prints from 0 to 9. Now what we will do is we will create the same function, same implementation, but as a generator function. So what differentiates a generator function from a normal function is we have to just add a star after this function keyword, which will tell the JavaScript compiler that this function is a generator function. So when it is generator function, by default it will return an iterator when it is initialized or called. Now I'm just going to call this generator function. That's it. So this normal function, when it is called, it is directly executing. I mean, this is directly executing, but this function, when it is called, it will not be directly executing. We have to add an important keyword here in order to make this generator work as an iterator. There is a keyword called yield. This yield keyword is responsible for passing and receiving the operations. Now I'm calling the generator function, which means it should execute from 0 to 9, but that will not happen here. So I will just remove this. See, straight away I'm getting this console log, but this generator function does not return any console log because generator function is a special function that will return an iterator when it is called. So I'm just console log the variable that is calling the generator function. See, it's an object which is an iterator. Okay, so then when this generator function will execute, when you call next method, that's it. You can see this console log prints value 0, and this yield will, I mean, when we call next, it will return a JavaScript object that has value 0 and done false. So this we have seen in the iterator. Iterator will return an object that has value undone. So this confirms that generator function will return an iterator, which itself an iterator. So the execution is stopped at 0. Then when it will resume? When I again call next, it will resume the execution. See, 0 and 1. We will just remove this console log to avoid confusion. See, some 6 times I have added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, so 0, 1, 2, 3 till 9. After 9, value should be undefined and done should be true, which means the iterator is telling that this is the last value and you can stop iterating. So with the help of this generator function, uh, we have implemented. I mean, we have not implemented any iterator. Instead of that, we have just used yield keyword that takes care of all the iterator functionality. Okay, so this is fine. Uh, Now let us see how can we implement. I mean, why this generator function is needed. This generator function itself an iterator, so this will help us to create customized iterators. That is one use case. The other use case is going to be that will be helpful during asynchronous programming. Okay, so now let us see how we are going to create a generator function to iterate array of values. This will give us a clear picture. Function star iterate array. So this is a simple for loop iterating the values. Instead of printing the value, we will just simply use yield keyword. So this star after the function keyword and adding yield keyword will make this function as generator function, and it will be an iterator. It will iterate all the data for us. That's it. Now I can use this generator function to iterate any array. Okay, simple. So we have created the generator function. Now when this generator function will start executing? Only when we call the next function. That's it. So now, for example, instead of iterating all the values, I just need first 5 values. I don't need the next 5. The execution has to stop at the 5th value. What I can do is I can just call this next 5 times. Simple. So in a for loop that iterates 10 times, we are passing the execution at the 5th value. That is the control. This generator and the iterator function, generator function and the iterator giving us the ability to pass the code execution and call whenever it is again needed, then the code will resume. So hope this video is clear. The next topic is promises. This is an important concept in asynchronous programming. So we will see what is promises, what are the states of promises. Then we will write a code to see how promises is behaving in the sequential execution as a asynchronous part of the programming. So there are many scenarios where the main code has to wait for a long time to complete, then to execute the rest of the code, like API request, file reading, timers. So API request usually take more time if the data is huge. In that scenarios, the main code has to wait until this long running task has to be completed. How this can be addressed? Asynchronous programming allows us to run this long running task to run at the background while continuing the rest of the code execution. So promises plays a major role in this. So promises is nothing but an object that represents either completion or failure of the asynchronous task. So asynchronous task is nothing but a task that is running at the background, and main code will not be disturbed. The main code will keep on running simultaneously. There are three states of promises. Either the promise is pending, which is yet to run, or it is running. Fulfilled, which is successful completion of the promise, or rejected. Promise is rejected. We will see an example with the code. So let's create a promise code. It is an object, new promise of. It has two states, resolve comma reject. Right. So inside that promise, I'm just declaring a variable. So instead of this success equal to true, imagine our main code logic that is responsible for the long running task has to be here. If success else, so reject here, reject of task failed. So this is the simple promise object. It should have two states, one is resolve and reject. If we have just given a boolean variable to simplify the code execution, but imagine we will have the long running task here. As a result of this long running task, it should be either success or failure. If it is success, then it should be resolved. If it is failure, then it should reject. Okay. If we run this code, we will see no output because it is created, that's all, but it is not executed. See, now I will have to call this promise and handle that in order to execute it. My promise dot, how are we going to handle this result of the promise? It can be handled using then, catch, and finally. Promise dot then, which means if the promise is successful, it should come inside this then block, or if it is some failure, it will come inside this catch block. Irrespective of either success or failure, it will enter finally block also. We will write just an arrow function to demonstrate it. Catch error, arrow function, console log, we are printing that error, and finally promise is completed, but it will not, this finally block will not ensure whether it is success or failure. It will ensure only it is completed, but this then block ensures that the promise is successful, and if the function, I mean if the control enters the catch block, then it is failure. So now if we run the code, since we have added the success is true, it will enter this then block. See, the task is completed and task completed and promise is completed, which means promise is called, and since it is success, resolve is called, task completed is printed, and then finally block enters, promise is completed. Next topic is going to be promise chaining. So when we need to run multiple asynchronous tasks sequentially, this multiple promises can be chained one with another. So how is it possible? A promise will be there, then block of that promise will return a new promise. Again, that new promise will have a then block. That then block can have another new promise that will return another new promise, and then so you can keep on chaining promises on the then block, and this is how we can create promise chaining. We can see an example for this. We have a promise here, and that promise have then block. We will just rewrite this code. So this then block of the first promise have to return a new promise. New promise of so we are not going to handle reject everything. For understanding purpose, we will just create a default promise with resolve alone with very basic lines of code. Second task is done. So after this then block, this promise will have another then block. And that will get a result. Just to avoid confusion, we will remove this finally. This is first promise, then block of that promise will have a new promise, and that new promise will have another then block. We have added a console log. We'll just try running this code. So then block of first promise, then block of second task. So we have the promise chaining executed. In case if you want to print the second task is done, you can just print the next result also, no problem. See, then block of first promise, second task is done. I mean the returned result is printed, and then last console statement is printed. So we have chained multiple promises inside another promise using promise chaining concept. Next topic is how can we handle multiple promises at once? So this is possible. I'll just explain the concept here and we will have an example after this. We have three promise. We can handle all the three promise one by one with single then block. Syntactically, we will see how that is possible. So I will just create a new promises. Promise 1 equal to promise dot. So straight away we will use resolve to make the code simpler to understand. So our main aim is now to create multiple promise and to handle multiple promise at once. First promise. Third promise. Fourth promise. So I have created 4 promises. If we run this code, we will get nothing because we have just created the promise but not used anywhere. So how I will be able to run all these 4 promises at once? That is possible. There is something called promise dot all. So this have the ability to run multiple promises at once. Create an array, put all the promises inside that. Promise 1, promise 2, promise 3, promise 4. Once all the promises are added inside that promise all function as an array, then you can add then block results all promises completed. So we have created 4 promises, added all the 4 promises inside this array, and we have used promise.all function to run all the promises at once, and then we have captured the result and printed. See, all promises completed. If I just want to print that results also, I can do that. See, so result of all the promises, that is resolve of all the promises, have been returned in an array. Like how we have added the promise inside the promise all, it captured all the results in same kind of array and returned as a results here inside the then block. So you will be able to capture all the results, we will not be missing anything. So this is how you can create multiple promise, n number of promises, and handle all the promise at once. And result of all the promises will be captured in an array inside the then block. Using the results variable, you can just print the results as well. Next topic is async and await. So this is nothing but an enhanced way, a modern way of handling asynchronous operation when compared to the promises or the callbacks. This actually makes the code very easier to write and readable with the when compared with the promises and other callbacks. That is the main thing. So what is async and await? Async is a function that returns a promise, whether it is resolved or rejected, it returns a promise. Await is a keyword that is used inside asynchronous function to pause the execution until that promise is resolved or rejected. We will see an example. So before jumping into async and await, we will create a very basic function. So we have created a function and we are going to call that function. Say hello console.log of result. So when we run this code, you will have the output hello and world printed, because we are calling this function. While calling this function, you will have the console log first printed. It will return the world value, and returning the that will be captured using this variable, and that will be printed. See, okay. Now this is a normal function. Now we will see what is async function. So as we said, async function or asynchronous function is a kind of function that will return a promise. Now what we will do is, we will just create another function fetch data. We'll just delete all this. Now in order to simulate the scenario that this is a long running task and this will take some time, we use timeout for around 3 seconds, so that we are simulating the scenario that this will take some time to complete. So this has to return a promise and that promise have to be resolved. Here we will use timeout line, timeout code. Set timeout of we can specify how many seconds we have to. 2000, in the sense it's 2 seconds. Resolve data received. So this is a normal function that will return a new promise. Now I am going to create a function with async. So this asynchronous function has to return a promise, so we are going to call that other function. So inside this asynchronous function, we are going to call this function fetch data that will consume around 2 seconds to complete and get the promise returned. So after this const data, I am just adding a console log. Now when I run this code, this should print fetching data. Then we are going to call this fetch data function using await. What this await keyword will do is, this will pause the execution here until this fetch data returns a promise and get the promise stored in this variable, and then it will resume the execution to the next line. So in fact, if await is not there, this is not possible. So now we will just run this code. We will just call this get data function. See, fetching data, it took some time, then you got the next step, which means fetching data, then it was calling this await, resolve, and you get the next step. If you print this data, you will have some output. Fetching data, long running process, data received, which means this promise have been called and that promise have been resolved. Only then you have got the result that is printed. After that you have the next step console log statement. So this is how we can implement asynchronous and async and await. So we'll just imagine that this fetch data will download a file and we are passing the file name here. File 2, file 3. So by this way we will be able to call multiple times this fetch data without the code making us confused. But if we implement the same scenario without asynchronous and await, either by using callback or using promises, let's see how that will look like. So for that I will just comment this function and I will just rewrite this function. And inside that function I'm going to call this fetch data. Fetch data of file 1 dot then result console log of result. Then I have to call for the second file. So I'm just not handling the error and finally block, catch and finally block, because if that is also added, then code will look really complex to understand also. File 2 and file 3. See, just we are having then block for each function call with the promise, but still the code looks like a little bit complex when compared to this asynchronous function. See, you can see the difference between this async await and this function. This we have used this we have written using promises. So this is one method, like handling using promises. But if you want to implement this same scenario using direct callbacks, that will be further more complex code. So that is most complex code, and this is better one. This is understandable, but this is very finest and easily understandable code when compared to all the other steps. So that's what I told. This is modern way of handling asynchronous operations very easily. We can just delete this. That's it. We have a function and we have called that function multiple times using async and await. That's it. Next topic is exports and imports. In JavaScript, each and every file is considered as a module, And functions or variables inside a module can be used in another file. So for that we need to export that variable or function from the main file or from the file where it is written, and you have to import into the file where you need to use it. So this is mainly focusing on code reusability and readability. And two types of exports are there: default exports and named exports. We will see examples for both. Let's say I'm creating a function to add two numbers. That's it. And I'm using this in main file to add two numbers. 5, 10. I can repeat calling this function multiple times I need. So we have written both function and calling the function on the same file. Now what we are going to do is we'll create a new file with JS extension and just cut this function, paste it here, and I can save this, and I can use this function from any other file, not only inside this variables file. I can use this function in any other file if I'm exporting, and import it in the file where I need. Import square bracket function name, that is add, sorry, this is set bracket not square bracket, add from mathutilities.js so it should be inside single quote. Since the file is in the same folder, I'm using dot slash, but if the file is on some other folder we have to use the exact path. So I have created a function in a separate file, in a separate module. I have used export keyword before the function to export this function to be able to use it anywhere, and I need to import in any file where I need to use it. So I have imported import square bracket function name from math utilities. So there is an error because we have to initialize this project as modules. Type module, so only then this modules export will be enabled. See, so I have created a function in a separate file and I have exported that function to be enabling it to use it anywhere, and I have imported it and I have used it. So while calling this add function with multiple values, different set of values, I'm getting output. Now this is named exports. So we have created a function and we have imported it. There is something called default export. For example, if I need to make this export as default export, simply a keyword export space default. So what is the speciality? A default export should be only one for a module. So all the other exports can be a named export.
and a named export have to be imported inside this curly braces, and name should not be changed. That is for named exports. But in case of default export, the curly braces is not required. You can directly use the function name, that will work. Or even if I want to just change the name, that is different from here, that will also work. See, the thing is, uh, we are not using as curly braces here, so JavaScript will find that this is default export. Whatever name we give, that will go and catch this function and use that in here with this name. That's it. So this is default exports. So whether we will be able to use both named export and default export in same file, that is possible. So for named export, as usual, we need to use curly braces, multiply. So this is modules, exports and imports, and different types of imports, exports, named exports and default exports. And default export have to be only one for a module, and that is used to represent the main functionality of the module.
Next topic is object oriented concepts. We will cover class declaration, how to declare a class, how to create a class, then constructors inside a class, and then followed by methods, both type of method, static and instance level methods. With an example we will cover. So now we will just create a class. Just keyword class before the class name. So class name, curly braces. This is a class without methods and constructor, but still it is a class. Now we will just add a constructor. So how to create a constructor? Keyword constructor, no other names allowed. Some parameter that is required to initialize the class, curly braces. So we can do whatever logic we need during the initialization of class, that is constructor. So this dot name refers, name variable belongs to this class, but this name denotes the parameter of the constructor. Likewise, this dot age equal to age. So what we have done is we have created a constructor in such a way that when we just pass the parameter to the class, it will get the parameter, it will initialize both the parameters of the class. So what is a constructor? It is a special kind of function which will be automatically executed when the class is called, that is object is created. So now we have created a class. Now we will initialize the class, that is we will create an object. So const object name equal to
new class name of the parameters that we have specified inside the constructor can be given, like comma 20. Since the object is created, the constructor might constructor will be automatically called, and both name and age of this person class will be automatically allocated with the value that we have given in the 8th line of code. So if we try to just print the value 1 dot name, you will get the same parameter that we have passed. One dot age. We can create a number of objects. See, that's it. So this is the method, this is the way to create a class and initialize a class using constructor. And now we will just create methods, that is functions inside the class. So I just need to create a function named greet. So that will just give you the console log. So we are referring to the name variable of this class. We have created a function now. Now once, we don't need to just console this value. Initialization is enough. Now if I just call that function, what will happen? Console log of person1 dot greet. That's it. So you can see a class with a constructor and a function, and we have initialized the class and we have called the function. So now we will run this code. So that function has been called and this statement has been returned, and we have console logged it. So there are two types of methods available. One is class level methods and instance level methods. For example, let's say I am creating another object for this person. In that case, both object will have two different this function, greet function. This is instance level object. You will be having this function separately on each object. Person1 dot greet will be there and person2 dot greet will be there. So this is instance level function. What is the other type, that is static function? Static function is nothing but class level function. You can create how many number of objects, but you will have only one function, static function. One function when it is declared as static, that will belong to class, and no object will have that function on its own. So in that case, how can we call that function? So now I'll just delete this second initialization of the class. So this is instance level function, and if I make this function as static, I don't need to just create an object. Since it is class level function, a function that belongs to the class itself, we can just call this function by the class name person dot create. So you don't require to create an object here. So this is class allowed function. See, so this is the explanation of a class, initialization of a class, constructor and functions, two type of functions, class level and instance level functions. Next we will see what is inheritance, then how to inherit properties from base class to derived class, then what is method overriding during inheritance, and what is the use of super keyword in the derived class function. Before that, we need to understand what is inheritance. Inheritance is nothing but a class acquiring properties, that is variables and methods from another class. So for example, let's say we have a class A and variable 1 and method 1. In case class B is inheriting from class A, then it need not have the variable 1 method 1 defined in class B. Since it is inheriting, this variable 1 and method 1 will automatically have a copy here in class B. So class B is set to get or acquire the properties of like both variable and method from class A since it is inheriting. This extends is the keyword that used to represent that this class B is inheriting from class A. We can see an example for this. So we have a class named person and a constructor inside that and another function inside that. Let's say we also have a variable like now I am going to create another class person a extends person. That's it. I have simply created an empty class and extended this class person to person a. So this person is going to be a parent class or main class, and this person a is going to be child class or derived class. Now we will see the inherited properties of person a. See, the output is hello world. Let us see the explanation now. Hello world is there only in one line in this page. It is in the 8th line, which is this greet function. But it is to be noted that I have created object for person a and I have called object 1, that is object of person a dot greet of. But when you see, is there any function called greet inside this person a, which means no. This clearly makes us understand that when a class extends another class, functions and variables will be inherited to this class, to the child class. So I can straight away extend the class and I can straight away use the parent class function inside the derived class using derived class object. This is first basic example for uh, inheritance. We can also write own constructor for derived class also. Name comma age comma city. Fine. Now in this case we have constructor and both base class and derived class. If I give two parameters, then it will straight away call the base class. If I give three parameters, then it will call the derived class. That is the difference. So when you write a constructor for derived class, you must call the constructor of the base class also. That is the error throwing before. Here comes the super keyword. The super keyword is used to represent or call the base class function, base class constructor. Now the last part of video is method overriding. So method overriding is nothing but I have a function in base class and I have derived that base class to person AAA class, which means this greet will be by default present here. So when I call this object on dot greet, I will get this hello world output. But when I call derived class greet, I need a different console statement or different output. And when I call base class greet, I need different output. How can I do that? There is something called overriding. Redefining base class function in the derived class is called overriding. I will do that. Very simple. Right now we have greet in both base class and derived class. What we will do is we will create object for base class also. So remember base class have only two parameters. So have created base class and derived class inherits from base class. Then greet function is there in both in base class and derived class, which means we are overriding this greet function from base class to derived class. Now if we run this output, let's make this object as second because we are calling the base class first now and derived class second. Let's see greet from the specific classes is properly called and the console logs are printed. Uh, We will just remove this console statement. This is confusing now, right? See, hello world from base class and hello world from derived class, which means we have created object for base class and called object 2, that is base class object 2 dot greet. So I am getting proper base class function output. And second, the derived class object and derived class greet is overridden from base class. So you will not have this console statement when you call derived class object. Instead of that, you will get this statement. So this is how you can inherit properties from base class to derived class, and use of the super keyword, that is to call base class function, base class constructor, then again overriding, uh, redefining base class function in the derived class is overriding. Next topic, we will discuss two data structures, sets and maps. So what is set, what is map, code example and explanation for each. So what is set? Set is nothing but collection of unique values, and it will not have duplicated values in set. Set has multiple functions, add, hash function and delete function, and you can iterate all the values of set using for each. You will see code example for each of this. So we know that set is collection of unique values. Let's see how to create a set. New set of, you will have to give an array inside it. Any values you can give. 2 2 2. So to understand that the unique values will be maintained, that is the duplicates will be removed, I have added multiple times the value 2. Right. So now we will try to run this code. We have created a set with multiple values, and even duplicated values are added inside, and we have printed that set. See, the set has the value 1 4. It has to be noted that the value 2 is present only once, whereas while creating we have given 3 times, which means the duplicates will be removed and only the unique values will be maintained inside the set data structure. Right, now the next function the set has is add. If we want to add any values after initialization, say, set object dot add of 100. So initially this is the set, and after adding the value we are having the output. I mean the 100 is added to the existing set. Then next important function is hash function. Hash function helps us to find whether if that value is existing in the given set. How to use it? My set dot hash of 100. So this will search whether this value 100 is present in this set. If it is present, then it will return true, print true, otherwise it will return false. So since the value 100 is present, it is returning true here. Next function is removing a value. Delete function. My set dot delete of, let me delete it 100. Again, after deleting, I am just printing the values of my set. So initially set has 6 values, then we have added 100, that is why it is 100 here. Then we have checked whether the set has the value 100, so it is true. Then we have deleted the value 100, and after that you cannot see 100 in the set value. Then finally, how to iterate the values of a set using for each. My set dot for each of value arrow function console log of value. That's it. Using for each, you can iterate it. See, initially we have printed the values of set, and then using for each we have printed each value of the set. This is the basics about set data structure. Now we will move on to maps. Maps is nothing but collection of key value pairs. In set you can see each value will be a number or a string but a single value. But in case of maps you will have key value pairs. A value will have a key and a value. So combination of key and a value will make one element in maps. Important to notice, key of this maps can be a string or a number, or even an object can be set as a key. Then we have multiple functions here: set, get, hash, and delete. And same thing we can use for each to iterate all the values of maps. You can see examples now. Right. So how to create a map first? New map of. That's it. We have initialized the map. How to add a key value pair to map? My map dot set of, we have to add two values here. For example, first one should be key and second one should be value. Let's try adding multiple key value pairs. If we try to print this map, see, you can notice that each value is a key value pair. Name is a key and key is pointed to this alias value. Likewise, you have the second value age as a key and 40 as the value. So each element is going to be a combination of key and a value. Right, now we will see how to access each values of the map. If you know the key of the element, you can easily access using get method. Get of, just enter the key name. So this my map will search for a element that has a key name and print it. See, if you search for the element that has the key as name, you will get the value alias printed here. Right. We have told one more thing, that key need not be a string alone, it can also be an object. So we are going to add another element with key as object. So it's need not to be the same object string, it can be anything. Comma, special example. So while getting this value, while searching for this key, we can straight away enter this key value here, key here, not value, key here. Map.get of same key person, that's it. So this is expected that we are getting undefined. The reason is objects in JavaScript ES6 are referenced using the reference and not by the value. So if we need this object as key, you have to create this object as a value, then use that object to add as key to this key value pair, then directly use the same object reference, not the value, only object reference will work, same object reference to get this value. Now you can see the example. So key value pair, the key can also be an object, but that object should be uh, referenced using the same object that is created. Now the next function that map has is has function. You can enter the key inside this has function. JavaScript will search whether an element that has the key name is present or not. It returns true since we are having a key value pair with key name. Next function, I need to delete a value. Delete of age. So what we will do is before deletion we will just print the values of map, and then after deletion we will again print the values of map to see the difference. See, first you have name, age, and third value key person special example. After deletion you will not be able to see the age key value pair because we have deleted, right? So the last part of this map is how to iterate all the values of map using for each dot for each of value comma key arrow function console.log of key comma value. So you can have your own implementation of strings with some decorators or something. See, you have all the key value pairs displayed on each line. So these are the features of maps, and that covers main basic functionalities of sets and maps. Next topic is weak sets and weak maps. These are both again data structures similar to sets and maps, but they have numerous differences from them. Main difference is both weak sets and weak maps. If the values of weak sets and weak maps are deleted and initialized to null, then the garbage collection will happen, which means the object reference will be deleted to have better memory efficiency. Other than that, there are few other restrictions also. Weak sets can have only objects and cannot have numbers like sets. Again, weak maps have key as objects only and cannot have key as string or number anything, but it is a key value pair like maps. So both have the restriction that it has only objects, it should have only objects, and it should have only objects as key. Then iteration is not possible using for each or anything, and you cannot access this by key, and you can access this by using get method. And when there are, this is the important point, when there are no references to objects, then garbage collection will happen. This is same with both WeakSet and WeakMap. Though you cannot see the garbage collection happening inside the code, we can have a basic example on how to create a WeakSet and WeakMaps. First, we will create a WeakSet. New WeakSet of. So it is to be noted that it can have only object as element and cannot have numbers or string or anything. Right. Now I am going to add a value to this WeakSet. So it can have the value inside the WeakSet now. See, you will have only the objects. If you want to uh, find whether this has the object, it will print whether this is true or not. That's it. Once WeakSet has completes its functions, if this object is initialized to null, immediately garbage collection will happen because it has only one value, and even that one value is initialized to null, one reference, because it is reference we have added here. That reference is initialized to null, which means the WeakSet will not have any value, so immediately garbage collection will happen. That cannot be witnessed using code output, but that will happen. Likewise, if I want to create a WeakMap, new WeakMap of, and we already know that it should be key value pairs. WeakMap dot set of, I mean the key value pair of WeakMap should be, the key should be object and cannot be name or string or number or anything. So we are using this object as key and special value. Console log of WeakMap of dot get of. So we will just call this object. We will get the special value printed here. See, and this WeakMap has function like sets and maps. It will find whether this WeakMap has this value or not. And once this object is initialized to null immediately, which means this WeakMap has only one key value pair, and that key value key is initialized to null, and then immediately garbage collection will be happening, which will not be witnessed in the screen. Next topic is we are going to create a JSON object from JSON string, and that JSON string will be converted into JSON object using JSON parse. Then again we will see how to convert that JSON object back to string using JSON stringify. This is most popularly used functions while we are handling JSON objects. So we are creating a JSON string here. First value, comma, second value. So we have created a JSON string. So we have a JSON string now. I need this string as JSON object because if this is an object, I'll be able to access this key using key name, age value using key name and other things. So JSON object equal to JSON dot parse of JSON string. Console log of JSON object. See, you can see the difference between the first line and second line. First line is a pure string and second line you can see this value is green, which means this denotes this is an object value that is printed. If I need to just access this name value using name using key, that can also be possible. See, I can get age also. See, so this is how you can create a JSON string and convert it into JSON object. Now what we will do is we'll again convert this JSON object back to JSON string using JSON.stringify. JSON.stringify of that JSON object, and I'm going to print it. What we'll do is we'll just remove this age alone. We have printed first initially created JSON string, then converted JSON object and converted back JSON string. See, first it is string, then it is JSON object denoted by green color, and then again string. So in JavaScript ES6, several new array methods were introduced that are significantly enhance the functionality and ease of working with arrays. So to make it simple, these 10 functions will make us feel very easy to access arrays with multiple functionalities. So in these 10 functions, map, filter and reduce are a little bit more important, but we will see examples for each of the functions. So first function is going to be for each function. So we will initially create an array with some 6 values. We will see how to iterate each value using for each. Numbers dot for each of, we can have num and index. The num parameter will give you the value of the element and index will give the index of that specific element, and we can use arrow functions. Console.log of index is and value is, that's it. See, we were able to access each and every element of this array using for each. Next, map function. So map function or map method helps us iterate all the values of array and do some implementation logic or something to that values of that array and create new array with the processed values. So numbers dot map of, so if I want to just add 1 to each and every value, I can do that. Num arrow function num plus 1. So what it will do is it will just iterate all the value, add 1 to each value and create that as new array. See, you can notice that each value has been added with value 1. It can also, I mean, we can do multiple kind of operations like adding, concatenating a string, whatever the process may be, or even we can add a number, a string, a float, or whatever it may be. So map will help us to do iterate each value of array, process something, change the value and create a new array from that. Next method is going to be filter. Filter is same like map, but that will not do any processing. Instead of that, filter will create a new array with elements that passes the given condition. So what we will do is we will just create filter so num modulus 2 equal to 0, which means I need only the even numbers from the value. So it will iterate all the values and numbers that passes the given condition is should be 8, 2 and 4. That value alone has to be taken and created as a new array. See, this is for what we have we are using filters. Next function is reduce function. So unlike this filter, map and other things, reduce, what it will do is it will take, iterate each values and try to combine all the values together using logic that we are giving here. Reduce of, you will have two parameters, total comma current value. So while iteration you will have two parameters, one is current value that is pointed to the current iteration, and this is the variable where you can store the total value or processed value. If I want to subtract, then the subtracted value, or if I want to add, then it should be the added value. Arrow function total plus current value comma 0. So once this is done, see, so this reduce function will try to reduce all the values of array to a single value with with the help of logic that we are giving here. So at each iteration it adds the value with the total value. So at each iteration this one is calculated, I mean one is totaled with 5, that is 6, and then again 6 is added with 8, and again each value is added, and finally you will get the total value. If I just wanted to subtract the value, I can also do that, minus. So this is what the reduce function is all about. Next is going to be find function. Inside an array we are going to add multiple values as key value pairs. Name, alias, comma, age 25, and again name is going to be and age is going to be 35. I have created an array. Now how can I use find function? So now this user this sorry now this numbers will look for age, u dot age is greater than 30, and get you this first element. See, so first value age is less than 30, so that is ignored, and second value is printed. Next we have find index function. It's very simple. Instead of finding value, it will give you index of the value. So I need to find the index of the value that age is equal to 35. See, it is in the first index. 0th index is Alice and first index is Bob. You have got the index. Next function is going to be sum, S-O-M-E. So the explanation of this sum function is it will have a condition and it will check the condition for each value of the array and tells us that whether at least one element of this array has passed this condition. Numbers dot sum of number modulus 2 equal to triple equal to 0. If at least one number modulus 2 equal to 0, then it will return true, otherwise it will return false. See, if I just remove this 2 or just remove this 2 and add 11, you will get false. There is a slight variation to this function. Instead of sum, if we just use every, it will check for each and every element whether that passes this condition. If all the elements passes this condition, then you will have a true, otherwise it will have a false. Since all the elements are odd number, then since all the elements are odd number, we are getting false. Now I will just add only the even numbers. You can see we are getting true. I'm just changing this last even number alone to an odd number. See, so this is the difference between the sum and every function. Next function is going to be includes function. This include function is useful to find whether the given array has this specific value. Since banana is there, we are getting true. We are just trying to find whether this grape is there. We are getting false. So this last function is going to be flat. This is most useful function that we have ever seen in this list. Imagine we are having an array. Inside that array, we are having a nested array. So inside that array, we are having another subarray, comma. See, it's a kind of confusing array. Now I just want to take all the values, sub values of all the arrays inside this main array and make it as a single array without a subarray. So that flat function is used for this. Nested array dot flat of we have missed the console log. See, so we have got all the values 135, 63, 45, 99, 100, 101, 103. We have got all the values. If you remove this 2 here, you will see this value. So with this we have came to the end of this entire JavaScript ES6 tutorials. So we have tried to cover almost all the basic functionalities of ES6. Hope this series would be very helpful for you. In case you have any feedbacks or comments, you can leave in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Keep supporting us.